you all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Chris, would you mind calling the roll, please?
Mrs. Detzel? Here. Mr. Yoshimura?
Here.
Ms. Bradley? Here. Mr. Gilbert?
Here.
Mr. Detzel?
Here.
Okay. We do not have a legislative report or a Butler Tech report tonight. So we're going to go right into, do we have any reports from employee organizations? Certificated or licensed? Classified? Any reports from school-related organizations? Okay, I have received a request for 5 people for community comments. So Sarah Hausler, if you'd like to come up, transportation for childcare. And our board policy is like, you leave it around 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
I need a step stool. Okay. My name is Sarah Hausler. I'm co-director and administrator of academics at Pleasant Run Church of Christ Child Development Center. We are located on the corner of Pippin and Kemper Roads. Our address is 2720 West Kemper Road. I've been at our center for almost 19 years in August. I have seen how dangerous that intersection at Pippin and Kemper are, witnessing auto accidents and accidents involving pedestrians, some involving students, and some accidents even involving my families. Our center has been in operation since 1995. We have a before and after school program at our center. We've had to ask for transportation in years past, so this isn't new to us. Our children go to 6 schools in the district and 1 outside the district who uses a van service for mental health reasons. I'm here today to advocate for the safety of our children. I understand our center is too close to PRE to receive busing services. I see many challenges with this, and I would like this to become a success story. As a community, we must continue to improve meeting the needs of our students and families, both in and out of, and in my case with my kiddos, in between the classrooms. Sorry, I'm nervous. Safety needs to be a priority. One of the functions of the board is to be responsible to citizens and the students in Northwest Local School District. Not providing busing to PRE will put about 25 of my children's safety at risk. At the intersection, there's no crossing guard during the school year. Not providing busing would mean that if my parents choose to stay at our center, my kids would have to cross Kemper Road, where no turn on red is supposed to be a thing, but it's not. And after the time change, when we fall back, that intersection will be dark in the morning. Not providing busing means that kids will have to walk without sidewalks. Not providing busing means that my kids' safety are at risk for parents who are entering and exiting the school. Not providing busing means that my parents are scrambling with a month of summer left to try to make arrangements. Arrangements that may include having to go to another center along with the possibility of withdrawing the younger siblings. As of now, we have 14 school-age children who have been in our care since infancy, and we have 11 who have been in our care since preschool. We have longevity with our families, and changing when and where a child goes to for before and after school care is causing undue stress for my current school-age families. Consistency is a key component for anyone to be successful, and this especially includes our children. Some of our parents have spoken with people from transportation. Some parents have left messages and not received a call in return. My co-director and I have both called and have not received a call back. There were mentions about a contract. I have no idea what that's supposed to mean, something between the business manager and the superintendent coming to an agreement by the end of last week. I hope that the departments involved can come to an agreement to continue to provide busing to 2720 West Kemper Road, and I can continue to provide quality care for my families.
Sarah, one thing, you said the sidewalks for kids to walk on, the school district, or we'd like to put sidewalks on our own property.
Okay.
So those 2 houses right there, I know right where
Yeah.
you're talking about, that lead up to Pleasant Road's property. That's the county, township, you would have to talk about sidewalks for that, because we can't put sidewalks as a district on somebody's private property.
What's the safety transportation program to get funding for sidewalks in areas? SR, there's an acronym, STR
I'm not sure.
something?
I'm not sure what that is.
Safe travel, yeah, yeah. So there may be some other options. We know the neighbors directly on that corner, with that
Where they had that.
farm kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
So we
That big garden.
talk with them. I know the next neighbor over, a lot of times will sit out with a golf cart because kids will kind of go too close to their house, and he kind of monitors that. And that's just from me working there for 19 years and kind of knowing the neighborhood. So
I just want to let you know that.
I appreciate that information.
Do we have any comments, or will somebody get back? Is there plans for?
Chris McKee is on vacation Wednesday. We will get back with her. We should have her information on our card.
We've left lots of messages. So we wondered why, but vacation explains it, so,
And he'll be back Wednesday?
Returns Thursday. Wednesday's his last day.
okay.
Our business director is Chris McKee.
I've, extension 1084.
Okay.
So,
All right. Thank you.
thanks.
Okay, Melissa Geiger. And this is about transportation bus service not being sent from my child.
Melissa Geiger. I live on Pippin Road, and there, where she was talking about, if you go down, there's a hill. Then if you go, there's another big hill that goes up. You cannot see over that hill. Well, where I live, there's one more house there, but the sidewalk ends on that side. So my daughter would have to cross Pippin Road to get to the sidewalk without being able to see if cars are coming, to walk down to where the sidewalks end, go past where the daycare is, walk across Kemper Road, and then walk along where there's no sidewalks to get to school. It's not just her. There's also, she's 9, there's a 7-year-old, and there's a 6-year-old that would have to do the same thing. And I did receive a message, I think it was Todd Bowling, said that it's not the law that Northwest has to send transportation within a 2-mile range. Okay, that's a law. But what about the safety of my child and other kids that live below that hill?
You on the side where Beautiful Savior Church? On that
Yes.
side.
And we live over, and I can't even see over the hill. I won't even let my 16-year-old cross the street there. So I'm not going to let my 9-year-old cross the street there, because there's already been a child that was hit there and killed.
I'm not sure who the message come from, but I did not put out a message. Somebody might have tied my name to it.
Well, somebody did, yeah, I know somebody gave me a message, and I mean, I know there's laws, but that's a law that can be changed, and a bus can be sent to make sure my daughter is there safely, and the other children that live right there with her. So it's very dangerous right there, because there's no sidewalk on our side once you hit that house next to us.
All right, thank
Thank you.
you. Nicole Seward, transportation.
I'm Nicole Sywert. My daughter attends the daycare that Sarah was speaking about. Also, one of the infant, she's been there since she was an infant. All 3 of my kids have been there, and I'm at a position where I'm going to have to move my kids who have been at a daycare since they were born, because I cannot trust them to walk across the street. That's not fair. That's not fair. For me to let my 8-year-old walk across Kemper Road, and I've witnessed kids last year, they were not allowed to walk on the grass. They were walking in the street or walking on that teeny tiny cement walk because neighbors, they're too close to the grass. I cannot let my 8-year-old walk across the street. When I've witnessed accidents, I've witnessed a near fatal wreck with a daycare parent. People running lights, people, I can't. That's not fair. That's not fair for elementary kids to not have a bus and okay, sidewalks are not, you can't control sidewalks in an area that, where there's houses, but then why can't they get a bus? Why can't they get a bus? That's not fair for 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds. They have 25 kids at the daycare that they're gonna potentially lose because there's no busing now. So now the daycare is gonna not have 25 kids? And then the whole neighborhood behind there, the whole neighborhood behind the daycare isn't gonna get busing. That's not 5-year-olds. Would you let your 5-year-old walk to school? Because I'm not gonna let my 8-year-old walk to school. I don't know why that's not, I don't understand what the process is here. I get it, you don't want a bus within a mile, but they're children. What's gonna happen if a kid gets hit? Because then you're gonna have a lawsuit. Because I'm just saying, if my kid gets hit, there will be a lawsuit because you did not provide a bus. So something needs to be done. I don't know. I have no more words.
Thank you. Brittany Lushinger, issues with Coleraine High School.
My name's Brittany Luxinger. I actually have 3 students in the Northwest Local School District. I'm addressing this one tonight. I do have issues with my 2 littler ones too at Struble. Figured this is the main one to be taken care of first because he is a senior going out of Coleraine High School. It is in regards to my son Jordan Roberts. Last year, at the end of marching band season, Mr. Fisher was included in this email confirmation, going back and forth between me and Mr. Page. So there's a competition for marching band. He is in the marching band. He has been in marching band since 5th grade. All the way up from Mr. Yost, I think. I don't know. Yost, then boys, then on up the chain through high school. He is a senior. First, what happened was, I'll explain what happened.
Did he graduate already?
No, year. He's a senior this year. Yes.
Okay.
And there has been repercussions that have happened since this, and it's not right at all. So they were at their last competition for their season for marching band last year. They got done performing, and him and his friend, like they had their little speech, they all got together. They said that they were supposed to stay in the area, okay, which was more than likely at the school. I get all that, I get it, but you're dealing with teenage kids, okay? So him and his friend were told to stay in the area, well, the whole group was, okay, and be back in a certain amount of time. Him and his friend decided to go across 3/4 of a mile away. Okay, so I asked for the policy. The area is not defined in the policy. And I sent emails back and forth to Mr. Page with Mr. Fisher copied in on it. Mr. Fisher did not answer me. He left it up to Mr. Page to give the consequence, okay? So right when, so the area wasn't defined. So how do you know he was traveling outside of the area if it was never defined? Without anyone noticing, that's another thing. I think there was like 130, in the marching band. I'm not sure on numbers, I really don't know, but there's about 100 and something. Mr. Page himself left the area. Mr. Page left the area to eat himself. He didn't stay with his band kids. He left. What example is this setting? A punishment was assigned immediately that I felt that this isn't really appropriate way to handle it. The punishment that was assigned to the 2 students were you wasn't allowed to do winter percussion or activities. So basically it was the end of it, but he didn't get to go to the last 3 football games. He wasn't allowed to partake in the Christmas activities like bringing Santa to the mall, the nursing homes. Mind you, he has been doing this since he's been in 5th grade. He loves to do this type of stuff, okay? Suspended from marching band season, possibly not allowed to join the marching band season next year, so this year. And possibly be removed from the competition. I guess he was gonna call us and let us, me and the other parent, know that this happened. Mind you, nothing got told to me or this other parent, okay? If they were letting the students tell us, we didn't get told. I was still dropping my son off to Coleraine or letting him stay after so he could partake in the rest of the year because I was not notified. And then I sent an email, he said, and then there was an email, he thought I was told, again, if any punishment is given to a student, I thought the principal or somebody had to notify us. And Miss Davis was included on this as well because I didn't go straight to Mr. Fisher. I went chain of command, his principal, which was Miss Davis. She was aware of it too. Then we were told Mr. Page could not take the students in his car, even though it was considered a dangerous situation. Although the policy does not state this, I understand they're kids, but he didn't get out of his car. He was with his wife and his kid. He still let him cross the street to go back. Like, you're still gonna let him do it if it's so dangerous? And then we attempted to address the concerns with Mr. Page as he had never actually brought it to our attention. How is a teacher not required to address this? When escalating our concerns to Mr. Fisher, we were told the punishment would stand and perhaps there were some spots in the policy that could improve. He admitted that it could improve. Our concern is, at this point, is not the punishment. It was all the holes that could potentially seriously endanger our children. We received no follow-up on this. How is this acceptable? And then these are the questions, my final statements. In my closing remarks, I would like to leave everyone in their room with this final comment. The Coleraine family runs deep in me. I went to Coleraine, my sister went to Coleraine, my 3 children currently go to Coleraine. I want to support Coleraine. I want my fellow parents to support Coleraine. But I don't know how, in good faith, I can back a district that can so easily dismiss things that could potentially expose our children to harm. So I challenge each and every person in this room to decide if just good enough is really what we want for our children. Do we speak up for justice or be compliant? Do we strive to be better or tolerate monocracy? I honestly can't say how Coleraine would answer. These are my questions, and until I do get resolution or answers, I can't support the levy when I've been behind you guys 100% this whole entire time. And since then, to tie it up, Jordan got overlooked for doing the graduation ceremony this past year. Would have been his last year doing that. He's done it again every year since 6th grade, I think, 6th or 7th grade since they would qualify. He got overlooked because I sent an email to Mr. Page. There's no communication at all of what's going on when things change. He does work. I got an email from Mr. Page saying, we just decided on a Thursday, and practice started that Monday. And due to the quickness of having to get stuff together and his work schedule, he's been excluded, not looked upon. Well, he was off that Monday. He could have went. Well, then he finally let him go, I'm assuming. Again, I didn't get no more communication, and my son's telling me that he's doing this. He did do it. But again, no more communication came home to me saying that he was allowed to do it. I was told he was excluded. So he missed that Thursday because he did have to work that day. But then we got it where he could clear his schedule for the remainder. So he really technically only would have missed one, or maybe not, because he has until 3 o'clock on that Friday. So if they went out Thursday, they really have until 3 o'clock that Friday for the next week. He could have went in and did something and could have been at them all. But instead, he missed 2 because he told me no. He didn't reply to me until Monday. He told me no, that he couldn't do it because of the circumstances of how quick they do things. Well, you have to take into consideration you have teenagers that are work and also want to be part of the community and do what they like to do. He is. He is a senior. He only has to take 2 classes. He's a late arrival. He has, he's in Butler Tech program as well, criminal justice. So he has English and science, I believe, is his senior. And then he took on jazz band, and he does marching band and then criminal justice.
We will get together with Mr. Gehring, who's in charge of student services, and they will reach out to you and give feedback to you, for sure. Thanks for bringing it up.
Tara Rindler? Yes. I apologize. Transportation.
Hi, so I'm Sarah Rindler. My son over there is 7. He is at the PRC Pleasant Run Church of Christ daycare. So we're just here to reiterate what Sarah's been saying. They have 20-something kids that are under the age of 7 that will be displaced from the child care center if there's not transportation getting them there from PRE. It is not safe for the children to have to walk along the side of the road, whether it's a sidewalk issue that the schools can put in or not is besides the point. It's still not safe. And then from like our perspective with our 7-year-old here who took a solid 6 months of the last school year to adjust to the new building, you're asking to uproot him again and again put him into a new environment with before and after school and expect him to do well at school during the day. That's a complete upheaval of him as well as many other kids that are at this daycare.
For all of these, Ms. Detzel, I will get with Bob Eagle and Chris McKee, and we'll reach out to all of you, and make sure we get your feedback and what we're looking at and what we can do. Again, this comes from the recommendations at the last board meeting when Bob and Thomas presented, and the recommendation of when you start enforcing the 1-mile policy.
Thank you. Okay, Todd.
All right, the first item is certified licensed personnel items, certified retirements and resignations. The superintendent recommends the Board of Education approve the certified retirements and resignations as listed.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved in second. Are there any questions? Motion passed 5-0.
Just wait for his turn.
Slow tonight.
The next item is classified personnel items. It's classified retirements and resignations. Superintendent recommends the Board of Education approve the classified retirements and resignations as listed.
So moved. Second.
Moved in second. Questions on the classified retirements or resignations? Motion passed 5-0.
Good evening. First, I'd like to ask the board to dispense with reading of and approve the June 24th meeting minutes that were provided in the packet.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the regular meeting minutes for June 24th. Any additions or corrections? Okay. Motion passed 5-0.
Next is the financial report for the month of June. Our all funds balance was $47.8 million. Our general fund unreserved balance was $25.9 million. And we ended the year at $262,000 higher than we had forecasted for the year. Our total revenues came in at 101%, and our total expenditures came in for the year right at 100%. Our investment weighted average return is 2.35%, so we're staying right around the benchmarks. And the list of monthly bills for the month of June, we had the Coleraine Slope Project, we had textbooks, Chromebooks, some weatherproofing survey that was done for our roofing, some professional development, student and fiscal software quarterly expenditures, AP tests, supplies, graduation, and prom. So with that, I'd like to ask the board to approve the fiscal financial reports for the month of June.
So moved.
Second, it's been moved in second. Are there any questions? Motion passed 5-0.
Next is to accept the fiscal year 19 final amended certificate of estimated resources for $170 million as approved by the Hamilton County Budget Commission. This will be end of the year, so our total fund balances plus total resources, which are receipts per fund for the whole year, fiscal year 19, at $170.7 million. With that, I'd like to ask the board to accept the final amended certificate for fiscal year 19 as approved by the Hamilton County Budget Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second. Questions? Motion passed 5-0.
Next is the official certificate of estimated resources for fiscal year 20. This is to accept the official certificate of estimated resources for fiscal year 20 for $155 million as approved by the Hamilton County Budget Commission. Right now, it's currently a little lower than the previous year because we still haven't gotten all of our federal grants and our auxiliary funds from the state of Ohio. As you know, they still have not passed our fiscal year 20 budget. So with that, I'd like to ask the board to accept the official certificate of estimated resources for fiscal year 20 for $155 million as approved by the Hamilton County Budget Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second. Questions? Motion passed 5-0.
Finally, the reversal of our fiscal year 19 advances. This is to approve the advances that we had to do at year end so that no fund would end in a negative balance. So I'd like to ask the board to approve the reversal of the fiscal year 19 advances from the general fund as listed.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second. Questions on the reversal of the advances? Motion passed 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is a general business item. It is vendor contracts. Superintendent and Treasurer recommend the Board of Education approve the vendor contracts as listed. Most of the contracts on here are the extra pay we have to do for special education students as we transport.
So moved. Second.
Moved in second. Any questions regarding vendor contracts?
Yeah. In our meeting that I had prior with Amy and Todd, I had requested like some comments as far as whether this is part of the budget, over, under. When will we have some type of indicator on whether this will be included?
At the next meeting, because that list was already done and we had to revise the form when they submit contracts to the business office. There's a form that they'll have to note on there if it was in their budget or not, because otherwise he would not know. So we revised the form to send out on the next set of contracts, I should say.
Just for the general audience and those listening, we receive a lot of information here as far as attachments. It has a lot of numbers on here, a lot of dollars. But it's challenging as a board member to understand, was this included in the budget? Is it something over, under, what like that? So I had a separate meeting with Amy and Todd to get clarification on the things that we're approving actually were part of the original budget, or are they over that we need to take some additional consideration? So that was what the conversation was about.
Motion passed 5-0.
Next item is a general business item, resolution to award contract Northwest High School parking lot improvements. Superintendent recommends the Board of Education hereby accept the recommendation of the construction manager to award the base bid and any alternatives for the project to the lowest responsible bidder in compliance with Section 3313.46 ORC and any other authorizing provision of law contingent upon compliance with all conditions precedent to contract execution.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved in second. Questions? Motion passed 5-0.
Next item is certificated licensed personnel items. The superintendent recommends the Board of Education approve the certificated licensed personnel items as listed.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved in second. Are there any questions? Motion passed 5-0.
Next item is classified personnel items. The superintendent recommends the Board of Education approve the classified personnel items as listed.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second. Questions on classified personnel? Motion passed 5-0.
The next item is curriculum and instruction. It is 2019-20 textbook adoptions for AP Human Geography, AP World History, and AP American Government Politics. Superintendent recommends the Board of Education approve the AP Social Studies textbooks as listed.
So moved. Second.
Moved in second. Any question on the textbook adoptions?
Are these the books that they're using at this AP camp?
No, that's, the AP Camp is for incoming ninth grade students.
Okay.
It's basically focused on skills so that they are prepared for honors level and AP courses. These are actually textbooks for the 2 new courses that we're offering for the first time this year, as well as for our AP government. So these are textbooks that come with a 6-year electronic subscription as well, trying to move us in that direction. And they were recommended at the AP camps with the College Board that our students and teachers attended at the end of June.
Any other questions?
There's noted on here that these books will be offered at both high schools. I can see it in Colerain High School and Northwest will receive the same test.
So they've chosen with the freshman APs to offer 2 different AP courses, but each school is offering one of those.
So, okay, there is a difference, and it says Colerain High School and Northwest High School, so the books are really,
The AP government is at both high schools. The AP human geography is just at Colerain High School, and the AP world history is at Northwest High School.
Any other questions?
As a reminder to the board, for AP and CCP, you have to have a certified teacher in order to provide the class. We also offer transportation to and from each school if they would want to take it, and it was something that was high on their priority, so we would transport or allow them to move.
wouldn't it disrupt their class schedule if they're moving for one class?
When you have only 20 credits required for graduation, if you get 6 your freshman year, 6 your sophomore, 6 your junior, you're 18 going into your senior year with 2, like she was explaining. So there is time in the schedule to adjust as students go back and forth and easily get 20 credits to graduate.
So the reason why there's only offered at one school versus the other is based on teaching availability, or?
A lot of these classes are. You have to be certified, you have to meet certain requirements in order to be allowed to teach them by ODE.
But we don't have enough teacher availability to do the same course at both schools?
Correct.
How did you decide which one school's going to go receive which class?
Teacher recommendations, had a meeting with the teachers and the administration to look at options, and these were the recommendations that came out of that.
Yeah. Motion passed 5-0.
Next item is student services. It is 2019-2020 building handbooks that were presented for information at the last June 24th board meeting. Superintendent recommends the Board of Education approve the 2019-2020 student handbooks as listed.
So moved. Second.
Moved in and second. Questions on the building handbooks? Motion passed 5-0.
The next item is Neola Board Policy Revisions. It was presented as information at the last meeting. Superintendent recommends the Board of Education approve the Neola Board Policy Revision as listed.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Are there any questions?
And this also talks about the 1 mile radius, that changing.
It doesn't change the 1 mile, it just changes some wording.
That policy has been in place for many years. It just changes the wording of it.
Motion passed 5-0.
All right, the next item is Superintendent's update. Bus passes, they will be sent out to parochial parents first on August 1st. Northwest Local School District parents will get theirs August 6th. Your first question might be, why do we get our second? Anywhere between middle of July and prior to the first 2 weeks of school starting, in past years, we've had anywhere from 200 to 600 students enrolled. So we don't want to send them out on August 1st and then have to resend them again on the 6th. All parents can go to eLink on our website. You go to nwlsd.org, pull up eLink, and you can look for bus passes quicker than August 6th if you would like. Again, as enrollees occur, bus numbers could change, bus passes could change based on space on the bus and availability. The other thing that we are implementing this year is My Stop. It is an app that is free to download on any mobile device, whether it's Apple or Android. It is free. And what it will do is give you an estimated time of when the bus will arrive to pick students up and when it will be dropping off. So those can both be found on our website. You go to nwlsd.org. We also made videos today expressing how this can be done so parents can follow along. So those will be coming out. The 1 mile letter enforcing district policy of no busing with 1 mile will be mailed out approximately tomorrow, Tuesday, July 16th. I fully hear exactly what your parents and your concerns. I do understand that intersection really clearly. We have lots of dangerous intersections like that throughout the district. So we will have to make decisions on what the board wants to do with these spots, because with our spending deficit being at 7.9 to over $8 million, enforcing the 1 mile policy does save the district, as Bob and Thomas presented, $300,000. So we will make recommendations. We will also listen to requests for appeals because of dangerous situations, and I will work quickly with Bob and Chris to get an answer to you folks quickly, because I know daycare depends on this. So just because Chris is out through Wednesday doesn't mean that we won't be communicating about it. So I want to assure you that that occurs. And we talked about that in our video today. Parents carpooling or parents designating someone to walk kids as they cross any street, much less Pippin or Kemper. So lots of things that we put in our video that would offer suggestions on what parents could do, but also understanding exactly what you're talking about and the dangers with no sidewalk and so on and so forth. So we will look into that for sure. As we move closer to August 1, we would like to look at possibilities of reductions, with the possibility of with the levy occurring in November. So Chris, if you could pull that up. What we have done is we have worked with our classified certified employees, which are secretaries, custodians, our certified, which is our teachers and our administrators. And these are some possibilities of what will have to be reduced if the levy does not pass in November. So what we will do is come back in August and we will present a reduction package to the board The reason for putting it out now is so they can start looking at what possibility can be cut. For those who can't see it real clear, I'll go over it with you. Elementary, talking and looking at things, they would look at cutting the assistant playground secretary. That would be 5. We have 5 elementary schools. We would look at cutting the ALP person, which means there would be no in-school suspension or alternative learning program. We would cut the 5 deans, all gifted teachers because they are not required, and 2 additional teachers from each building. This could raise class sizes to 30 or over 30 in some sections. That savings between the elementaries is $2,040,000. That still leaves us $6 million short on what we need to achieve if the levy does not pass. For middle school, we would look at a reduction of a possible secretary, basically removing the music program from the middle school. Math, reading, intervention, foreign language, and music could all be reduced. Gifted services are not required. They would be reduced. And we would change the schedule and the amount of bells in a day, and it would reduce 9 teachers at the middle school schedule. It would also reduce the deans. This savings would be $2.6 million. That gets us to 4.6 of the 8 we need. High school, we would be looking at the dean at Northwest or the grounds at Colerain High School, 12 teachers total, and that would be offering the basics. Again, as you look at a high school schedule, you're required to have 4 English, 4 math, 3 social studies, 3 science. Above that, we can offer any elective that we need to that is affordable in order to make this happen. We can do more blended classes, more online learning. We could look at the receptionists at one school, tutors at the other school. That savings is $1.5 million. In AO, a receptionist, our tech support person, a technology supervisor, which means we would have no supervisor over teachers in the classroom with technology, and we have 1 tech that supports 1,200 employees already for technology, and that would be reduced. 2019 reductions, we've already made 1 assistant director and 3 instructional specialists. So you add those totals together, it's $310,000 for the top, $1.3 million when you add them all together. The other things we're looking at is transportation. By enforcing our 1 mile restriction, as policy says, it saves the district $300,000. If we remove all resource officers from the high school and middle school, that saves the district $555,000. Extra days responsibility factor. In other words, counselors are on the same teaching contract as a teacher in terms of days, but they get paid extra days to come in prior to school and stay after school in order to get students' schedules to ready to go for the school year. So if we remove those, that would save us $91,000. If we remove Northwest Passage, which is our alternative school, which currently houses anywhere from 30 to 75 kids on any given day, that would save the district $263,000. All students would go back to their home school. We have looked at the possibility of cutting middle school and 9th grade athletics as of January 1 because of additional cost. We have also looked at if we move transportation back to a 1.5 mile radius, it would save another $300,000. We have also looked and discussed high school providing their own transportation to sporting events. A lot of GMC schools do not provide busing for their athletes, and any winter sports or spring sports, kids and parents have to provide their own. So that's a possibility of something we could look at. Lastly is our custodial maintenance. If we go to level 4 cleaning, which would be touching the classrooms once every other day, so 3 days out of 5 days, that would save the district almost $1 million by cutting down on those services. None of this is pleasant, but the reality is when you add all this up together, if the levy doesn't pass, it adds up to about $8.5 million, and these are the possibilities of things we will cut if the levy doesn't pass starting the 2020-2021 school year. I also want to remind the board that we have talked several times. If this does not pass in November, it will not come back at a lower rate. Our hope originally, and Amy, chime in anytime you want, was that this levy would last us 5 to 6 years with the flat funding that the state is talking about, and the accrued reductions that we've already taken from state funding, we hope to get 2 to 3 years out of this. So very difficult decisions are coming. Very big changes will occur if it does not pass in November. So I wanted to put this out in front of the board and in front of the public. We will be making recommendations for reductions that will affect everyone. If you look at the totals that are up there, it would be 36 teachers, 18 classified employees, and 12 administrators / supervisors. It will be very difficult, and it will take us basically to what a basic education is in the state of Ohio. We're trying to be transparent. We are showing you what's out there. We spent all of last year going to PTA meetings, going to other meetings, and talking about our spending deficit. We want to work with the community and to get this levy passed, and we want to do our best to show what the possibilities are prior to a November election, because you may think it's an easy decision, but it's not, and it's a difficult decision that the board will have to make based upon our recommendations. But Amy and I will be putting together a package that will roughly be around $8.5 million, and that's barely enough to keep what we have in place. If you remember back in the fall and winter of last year, Daryl presented a staffing plan. It's what we need in order to make improvements. If you look at all of our schools, they had great gains academically this school year. A lot of changes were made. If you looked at what the community said, they needed more support for behavior issues in the schools. So the recommendation of deans. Our counselors are not listed up there, but counselors were just new and added to this district last year. Those are another possibility of something else that could be removed from the elementary and the high schools. So when we say we need to cut $8.5 million, that gets us by for a year or two. That does not solve the equation. That does not solve the problems. It is something that we have constantly talked about, and something that will be a very difficult decision for the board. So wanted to put this out in front of you. We will continue to revisit. When we get to August, we have 2 meetings in August. So the first one will be a recommendation, and then the second meeting will be a final decision by you, so that when we go out for the levy, I've had a lot of questions on if I pass this levy, what will it get? It doesn't get anything new. It maintains, and even maintaining, we have to continually look at reductions. That is where we are at for funding, and how the state of Ohio has reduced so much funding that this is the predicament we're in.
Todd, I just wanted to remind that we haven't had new revenue since 2007, and with inflation, costs do increase each year.
So I have a question about some of the numbers on here. As far as the reduction, some of the things have already occurred. So like $680,000, that $219,000, we've already supposedly saved that money, because that's what's going to occur for 2019.
Where are you talking about?
The 2019 reductions for AP.
Yeah, that one has already occurred, yes.
And then the number underneath it, the 1.3 million, that was.
That is a combination of several items that should have been removed.
But there's a 310,000 just above the 2019 that is a place filler. What is that?
So the receptionist is 60, the technical support is 60, that's 120. The technical supervisor would be 220, and another 90 would be 310. So if you cut those 4 AO positions, it adds up to 310,000.
But then that number was added again to get the 1.3 million.
No, that 1.3 should not be there. I've already said that. It can be removed.
It's like it's less than $1 million.
I think as a reminder, this is the most difficult decision that the Board of Education has. And if we don't come together and as a community and do what's best for our kids, these are all realistic cuts that will occur, because even then, it doesn't get us to adding extra to help our kids. It maintains, and still we have to make reductions because of the state funding system.
Todd, the resource officers of the schools, is that $555,000
That's total for 2 at Colerain High School, 1 at Northwest High School, 1 at White Oak Middle School, and 1 at Colerain Middle School. Or I'm sorry, Pleasant Run Middle School and Colerain Middle School.
So, and then the 250,000 next to it?
That is if you would cut it in January and remove them. So you'd obviously save half at the
So
semester.
that would be, then none of the schools would have resources.
We also spend a lot of money on officers. Every officer we see in front of Northwest and Colerain High School, that total adds up to a large amount because of directing traffic. And if anybody has questions, Amy and I would be glad to meet with a group of 1, a group of 2, a group of 3, or a group of 4 to discuss the finances. We have offered that before, and we'll still be willing to do that at any time. We can meet in the morning prior to work, we can meet in the evening, we can meet at lunch, whatever you need to do. But we have constantly, and Amy's been presenting with her 5-year forecast. If you go back and watch board meetings from her 5-year forecast since she's been treasurer, this has been predicted, it was coming. What we couldn't predict, though, is the lack of funding that the state continues to give to school districts. We've been invited to speak on WLW and WKRC in the future about the unconstitutional aspect of state funding, so we will follow up with that and do as much as we can to be cheerleaders, to push our legislators to get funding where it needs to be appropriate for schools. It's just very difficult.
Okay, we're back to community communications. If anybody has a question about anything that was discussed during the meeting, you can just raise your hand.
Right here?
Right there.
Okay. With the cutting of the funds, I get it, and I understand I'm not one mom asking for one child, I'm asking for a bunch of kiddos. Might there be a possibility of having our center be a local bus stop with, whatever the maximum, whatever the number is, but have our center be a stop? And I know that we have a lot of special needs kids, a lot of Down syndrome kids, behavior issue kids, and they're high functioning, but like when they come, they're the only kid on the bus. It's like they could be on a bus with typical kids. And I understand that you're not gonna know what each child's capabilities are per, you can't just look at them and shell them. But if there was some way to maybe put some more of the high functioning kids together with the typical kids, more integration, I guess is a better word. Cause we had 16 buses and vans this year coming and going, and at least 5 or 6 were one kid. And I know like the VCM and the CCP and the UTS, like that's all different stuff with your alternative transportation. It's like one kid, really, like, and I understand if we're the last stop, I get it, but, if we could make maybe better choices with some of the higher functioning kids, or maybe it's a parent permission slip, I don't know how that all works, but just a note.
Look into it.
Yes.
Would it be possible for your concerned parents to meet with the superintendent and the transportation people? Can you
Absolutely.
set that up?
Sure,
We can come to your place.
okay, yes, sir.
Good.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yes.
Because I went to church here, I know exactly
Yes.
where it is.
We live .7, like 7, 8, or 7, 9. So that means just a block or 2 down, there's going to be kids who pick up the bus, and they're going to be going past our children anyways, and probably back past them again. What's going to hurt to stop and pick up the kids?
That is a concern, and I think that if you get enough parents to meet with the people I told you, the personnel, and voice your opinions, I think, they have an open mind to whatever.
And after we meet, I'll share the information with all
Sure.
5 of you, give you a phone call.
Anybody else?
Sorry I got here a little late today. I just want to share and remind everybody that all throughout last year, there's parking concerns
raised regarding severity and the traffic concerns all along Pippin and Kemper Roads, and the busyness of the streets and the sidewalk issue. So to accommodate that, I heard at several PTA presidents' meetings, at a meeting at PRE for PTA, and also Board of Education meetings, where to accommodate those safety issues around those sidewalks from the school being built on a place with no sidewalks, that the students would be picked up within a 1 mile radius. So I'm not sure I really understand why that changed, considering that we've been in deficit spending for a few years. So it seems to me that, I don't know why we would have said that we were having that accommodation and then take it away the very next year. That just doesn't seem right to me. So I would certainly hope that people here today hear the voices loud and clear of these folks here, but also understand that it's not just them. There's a lot of people who are very concerned about this, including myself. I get phone calls and emails from a lot of people that are not here today. And a couple of them have asked me to speak on their behalf, so, because they were at work. But this is a very serious issue, and I don't think any of us wants to see another child get hit. I certainly don't. I brought this up early last year at the beginning of the school year. I mean, this is not a new issue. So I certainly hope that you all would take that into consideration, above other things. Our kids have to at least get to school so we can educate them. And I want the board and the administration to remember that the sidewalk issue was brought up prior to the school being built in the location that it's at. So I just want to throw that out there. And then my second comment is, it's more like a question. I know that last year you had mentioned that there was a grant that was awarded for the 3 counselors at the 3 elementary schools, new elementary schools. So my question is, if we're talking about reducing things, and I think it was mentioned tonight that there's a possibility that the counselors may be reduced, if that money came from a grant, is that money earmarked for that grant, for that purpose, or can that money be spent for something else?
I believe counselors are paid out of general fund.
They're not grant funded.
They're not grant funded.
Oh, but that's what we were told last year, that there was a grant, so.
No, I think
Yeah,
what
we would only look at general fund items. Anything that is through federal monies, Title I's, yes, that is different from taking from the general fund, and you cannot supplant. So yeah, there are very strict guidelines or you would lose grants or funding.
I think there was a grant last year that we partnered with the YWCA for, and there are additional staff members who are YWCA employees who are employed at PRE, Taylor, and Struble, who work with the counselors to help with social emotional development. Those 2 employees are paid through a grant with the YWCA, but our counselors are paid for by the district.
Okay, because I know I knew about that piece, but I know that I heard in a meeting where we were told that those 3 counselors were paid via a grant. That's fine. I just wanted the clarification, and I understand that we finally have a counselor at PRE now because we had not had one previously. We had someone that was an acting counselor who did not have the credentials to be a counselor, and I think I brought that up for over a year. But that's why I thank you.
Anybody else?
I have just one comment. Mr. Rowland, you mentioned that there was some kind of video or something where maybe some suggestions were put in there for the parents about the crosswalk and the walking and so on and so forth. Just one little comment. My daughter wouldn't have her children at that daycare if she didn't have to go to work. So,
Correct.
Her working hours would not allow her to, help as a crossing guard or, things like that.
Yeah, and as I said, we will let the board give guidance on what they would like to see happen. But when it comes down to 8.5 million, it's unfortunate. There will have to be decisions that are made that we can transport some, we can't transport all. And that becomes very difficult. The recommendation by Bob and Chris at the last meeting was to enforce the 1 mile to save $300,000 to add up to the 8.5 million that we are currently deficit spending. So I fully understand what you're saying about safety, and all our parents, I assume, work and have daycare issues. Yes.
Anybody else? Yes.
So I've seen in your predicament for next year for 2021, cutting out music at the middle school. Why are you starting it in fourth grade now, this year, at the elementary schools, if you're just gonna cut it out when they get to
We
sixth grade?
started it at the elementary schools because we wanted to get more kids interested in music, 100%. We think it's good for kids, it's awesome for kids. Those teachers who we are listing in the middle school teach sometimes at both schools. So when we talk cutting programs, we would look at the possibility of any level. All of those are just possibilities that administrators, teachers, and classified employees suggested. They're in no way the final recommendation.
But I'm just saying, from a parent, I know my daughter at Struble is wanting to do it this year. Why are we gonna get into that instrument and pay monthly for it, just for it to possibly be taken away?
Well, our hope is also, we need to pass a levy. I would like more for our kids than to have a basic education. And to me, that includes art, music, PE, and all the extracurricular activities that they participate in, including sports. Sports and music provide opportunities for our kids that we can't give through academics. It gets them full ride scholarships. It gets them other opportunities. It meets their interests and needs. We want all of that. But if this levy doesn't pass, there's a good chance no art, music, or PE will be offered in any elementary school because we can't afford it. It's not our choice. We're in a spending deficit. And so we will do our best to get this passed. We will do our best to promote it as much as we can and communicate the best we can, because none of us want to see this happen.
So all those cuts are if the levy doesn't pass, they're not being
Correct.
cut right now.
Correct.
Some are.
Yeah, the bus,
The bus thing is
I was gonna say
one.
the bus thing was cut, but if the levy passes, why are you cutting the bus now?
Even if we pass a levy, we still have to make reductions because that's the spending deficit. Because we pass a levy, we can keep probably gifted, we can keep several things. The board would have to decide what they want to keep. But even with passing it, Amy's talked about this several times at board meetings, where even if we pass, we thought originally it would go 5 to 6 years. It's now only going to go hopefully 2 years, possibly 3, and then another one has to come up because we have received no new funds since 2007. So we've had to work with the same amount of funding since 2007, yet enrollment goes up and things change and kids come to school with more needs. This isn't something that we have to look at everything from top to bottom.
Correct. Our funding, we should be asking for an increase in revenue about every 3 to 5 years, and it's been 12 years, so we're behind in asking for revenue, which means even if we ask, we can't cover the deficit completely and then make it last long-term. So we've got to catch up and then stay ahead. And the state currently hasn't even passed a budget for fiscal year 20, so 40% of our revenue is in limbo right now. And we have to be able to maintain 60%, because even when they pass it at the state level, they just flatline it, so it does not increase.
And the state continues to take money away from public schools. Just in the last couple years on transportation alone, how much have we been cut? And usually with very little notice, like boom, all of a sudden, no, in the next couple months, you're gonna get 1.2 million or whatever. I mean, you can.
2 years ago, they cut us $1 million a year in transportation.
And the state policy on transportation, I believe, Lindsay, when we were talking today, they fund for 2 miles because that's their policy. So that reduces our funding also because as a district, we're 1 mile. So it's just continual loss of funding because the state continues to pull money.
And then they don't even fund it at 100%. The school district gets 40% funding from the state for transportation. So even though we transport all kids, which we should, we're a public school, we're only getting 40% correct reimbursement back for even kids that don't go to our schools. So tax dollars are covering, paying that as well. So it's just one thing after another. We just keep getting hit and hit. And for a state to be able to, 20, I believe now it's 22 years, maybe 23 years it's been since the state of Ohio declared it was unconstitutional the way Ohio funds schools, and yet the court system has not done one thing. And that part's frustrating too, because there are people and there are organizations that are continually, fighting for that, but 20-something years have gone by and it just can be unconstitutional and they move on.
Who are the organizations that are fighting for that?
I know PTA is always the.
Ohio School Board Association,
OSBA.
superintendents, treasurers, Ohio teacher unions, everybody who can.
Yep.
And it's just, I don't know, I don't understand how the new governor can just come in and flatline schools for 2 years, knowing that that was what he ran on, was to improve the funding system. Amy herself is on a committee that she was chosen to be, and I think every recommendation you folks have made has just been put on the back burner.
Yeah, the Cup-Patterson new formula that they proposed had the legislatures involved over 2 years ago trying to be ready for this budget, and they didn't even pull it in. They're talking about now having it as a separate bill, but right now it's not even part of the budget, which they haven't even approved any budget, so there's no revenue.
I have a couple more questions, just real quick. One, I wanted to know, have there been any calculations that were done, in terms of like how much per student would be removed from the district with, if any, kids or if families took advantage of the voucher program at Struble, the school choice program? And then also, I know that the kids at Yacht Club, or families at Yacht Club are redistricted to Taylor. From Taylor to Colerain. So my question is, what cost is associated with that? And then, I believe it, from what I understand, it sounds like in 2007, there was approximately 13,000 students in the district, and currently, there are approximately 8,500 students in the district. So, have we taken into consideration any savings opportunities from those things? So I'll just wait for the answer. Thanks.
You have so many questions, I need you to do one at a time, and I'll be glad to respond.
Struble.
What was the first one?
The first one was around the school choice voucher program at school. Have you guys done any calculations as to how much money will be taken away from the district? Or do we know how many families are taking advantage of the vouchers because of the academic?
So the way the school choice works is some parochial schools were advertising it for kids who live in our district. Overall, we had very few take advantage of it and leave Struble Elementary. So their enrollment of 170 in kindergarten last year stayed at 170 for first grade as of currently today. So it has not affected them in terms of losing enrollment. It's the entire school, K through 5, but I was giving you one example of a grade level. Their enrollment has stayed consistent.
So then we didn't lose, the district didn't lose any money from vouchers?
I don't have the exact numbers. We can't answer that, but we can get the information. But right now, we had very few that took advantage of that.
Okay, and then the second question was around the redistricting at Yacht Club. Those families are now not going to Taylor, they're going to be going to Colerain. So my question is, what is the cost associated with that change?
Transportation was already being provided. It affected 15 kids that moved back.
So are we saying that there was no increase in cost for that?
No increase in cost.
And then, is that not accurate, that 13,000, we had 13,000 students in 2007, and now we're close to approximately at 8,500?
Our current enrollment's right around 9,000. If you take out Butler Tech students, that's where you get to the 8,500. I don't have in front of me what enrollment was in 2007, but we have had a steady decline in student population. We have also had a steady decline in the amount of staff that we've reduced.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll go to board members' comments. Joe?
I haven't any.
Diane?
Real quick question for Todd. The e-link course that you mentioned, when will that be available?
E-Link is up right now, but talking to Bob today, I would think toward the end of July, you could start seeing it populating.
Oh, okay, so you can go there, but there's no information in there?
Right, not right now.
Yeah, so you said end of July.
Yep, you should start seeing it pretty quick. And the key there, you bring up a great question, continue to revisit it every day, because depending on enrollment, and if you guys remember back to a couple years ago, we enrolled about 200 a week for 3 weeks.
Okay. My next comment actually has to do with, Brittany, I'm so glad you're here. Lexinger, is that your last name? that your comments actually parlay on something else I'm really looking to talk to here in a second. But I definitely, share your concern about there being some type of corrective action for a student without the parent's acknowledgement. That is very concerning to me as a parent. And actually how that's parlaying to what I was originally going to talk about was not the previous board meeting, that was a very short one, but the prior full one. I was, very much blindsided by a topic that involved the graduation ceremony at specifically Colerain High School. I personally received a deceptive email from our superintendent. It led me to believe that there was no community service requirements for the students due to any type of what was deemed as excessive celebration at the high school. And the reason why I was parlaying back to Brittany, and I thank you for your comments, is that my concern is any acknowledgement or parent awareness of the actions that were taken due to their students for the disciplinary action, because the email I received said that all students that arrived that day received their diplomas later on that day, but in between that time, there was some corrective action that was taken. Was the parent made aware of what that corrective action was prior to the student actually having to perform it? My understanding is that no.
You want me to answer?
Sure, go ahead. Was the parent made aware of the corrective action?
If I understand your question, students showed up at 9 o'clock the day after graduation to pick their diplomas up. At that time, they were told they could not receive their diplomas if they owed community service, so they were required to do community service.
So the statement there is that the parents were not made aware of what their student had to do prior. And as a parent, that's concerning to me that anyone is giving my child a corrective action without my knowledge of what that.
We spoke to several parents that morning.
Several, is that, did you speak to all?
I would say no. I spoke to several parents in person. In terms of the other issue, and I certainly don't think it's appropriate to hash this out right now, but Ms. Luxinger, that situation, I have documentation. I know Ms. Davis met with them. I know Mr. Page met with them. There was a lot of communication about this issue. She brought up some questions about wording in the handbook. Certainly, we're always in a spirit of continuous improvement. We can always reword things, update things, all those type of things, but.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that you're in the spirit of continuous improvement. I would hope that would be what the district is about, because between the last meeting that this occurred, that I was blindsided till now, I've had a lot of time to actually do a little bit of investigation myself. So I've already mentioned about Witten Woods, I've already mentioned about Fairfield, that neither one of them have a policy such as our school district does when it comes to diplomas. I went even further. I went to Princeton. I went to Herfelier, Walnut Hills. They do not have such policy. They're ranked, like number 3 in the state, and they do not have excessive celebration policy. So in the spirit of continuous improvement, I would hope that we would, and honestly, the rest of the district, I was unable to find another school district in this area that has such policy that we have here. So it's very unfortunate that we're sticking to this, what I will say, archaic policy, and in the same spirit of being open to other ideas. And this is actually related to the communications ceremony, the communications study. If you have a chance to read that communication study in its entirety, I know the summary's been put out, but man, in that entirety, I don't want to use the word me too, because that's for another topic, but I would say you too. When I was reading through that communication study and hearing the comments from the community, I had a lot of you too moments. You feel that way as well? You have that stance? As I was reading through it, and actually graduation ceremony, I don't know if you read it or not, is a category section in there. And it says very clearly in that communication study that this needs to change. Now, I said, as I mentioned in, I believe it's October, December, that we did have a meeting, but one of the things that came out of the communication study is that there are a lot of requests for items, and it's really just a checkbox. We're asking for your opinion, but we already have our decision made. You can say whatever you want in the meeting. We'll ask parents, teachers, students, community, we'll ask whomever we want. But our decision's already made, and that's what it says in here. It says, the district's practice of requiring family members to remain silent at high school graduations while their graduate crosses the stage is controversial because the district punishes the graduate and his or her family violates the rule. Though this practice is well intent, it is not working. Find another solution to this problem, is a quote from the communication study. So I said, I'm bringing this up here today because part of my investigation, for those who are out there, that it doesn't sound like a lot of other members are listening, but I actually am. So I encourage the community to please share your stories about not just this school year, the 18-19 school year. If you have ever in any school year at this district had your diploma held or threatened to be held due to excessive celebration, please email me, dbradley@nwlsd.org. I am listening, and there are actually other medias, not social media, media, who are interested in your story as well. It'll be up to you whether you want to share that story or not, but I am listening, and there are other people who would like to hear your stories as well. So if it's yourself, a community member, a family member, please email me so we can actually start as a collective and start having this where the information is hidden and not shared with community on who's actually being withheld. If you actually volunteer to share this information, we actually can show what the community actually is truly interested in, and that's that there are other media that is interested in sharing this story as well. That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
At this point, I take a motion to move into executive session. We will be going into executive session. You're welcome to stay, but when we come out, all we're going to do is adjourn the meeting. So, but I thank everyone that spoke up tonight, and Mr. Bowling did say he would be in touch. So, I'd like to recommend the Board of Education approve the motion to move into executive session as listed. It'd be evaluations of the superintendent and treasurer.
Second.
Been moved and seconded.